Hey y'all, welcome back to Fake Deep Thinking. We're talking about news, politics, and culture. Let's introduce the crew. We got John,
Yep.
Doc,
Yo, yo.
Ian in the figurative back,
I'm doing what I can.
and
There you
myself,
go.
Eugene. All right,
There you go, Ian.
so we got some fun topics to talk about. The first topic we got for y'all is a viral video from Charlie Chon. I think I'm saying that name right. If I'm not, I do apologize. And he had a video that went extremely viral with as you see right there, 3.8 million views on the screen. And he had, in the title of it was, "What are we doing to white people?" We're going to react to this video. We're going to watch like the first 2 minutes and then maybe a minute of him posting like some clips that he took from like TikTok, social medias pretty much, and then probably stop there just because like he goes on another lengthy discussion about it. So I recommend you guys watch the full video if you guys want to get more context of the conversation and what's going on. And then another topic we have is, in Arkansas, a father was arrested for piercing his son's ears. That is interesting. Look at John smirk before he went off camera. So first, let's dive into this 3.8 million viewed video, and let's see what our takes are on it. So you go ahead and play it, Ian, and I'll tell you when to like skip if we need to skip.
Doing to white people.
Hey, Jamie in the house. What's up, man?
We're being told not to notice.
Yo, can you
What's the
increase the
point?
bass volume?
That we're
Yeah,
asking
Ian,
white
turn
people
turn it up
not only to ignore,
all the way up.
but to
It's
accept
really low. He kind of has
the rising
volume
tide
kinda like
of racial hatred against
all the
white
way up,
people.
Ian, please.
In the past decade, there has been a noticeable cultural shift in what constitutes acceptable speech as it relates to white people. Back when I was a kid, in the early 2000s, the mainstream American culture preached about respecting each other's differences and not seeing color. Nowadays, we say that not seeing color is racism, that you must see color. But the more I see how things are unfolding, the more I'm convinced that this is wrong. Back then, saying something offhanded about white people were seen as not appropriate, just as it would be to say something offhanded about people of any other race. But that soon gave way to our current times, in which there exists virtually no limit to what racial minorities can and do say about white people. I believe this is the natural outgrowth of a perverse ideology that teaches us that every societal ill, is the fault of white people, and that whatever prejudice acts we may inflict upon them does not constitute discrimination because we don't have the power
Can't hear him at all.
to discriminate.
Yeah, turn it up all the
And
way.
alarmingly, this is particularly
low on
pronounced in
our
the
end,
younger
but it's high
generation.
on the YouTube.
But is it
so
true? Do we
try- if
not
you could, try
have
to
the
just
power
read
to
subtitles.
discriminate? Well, let's
Okay.
see. First, let's take a look at the racial hatred at the interpersonal level. In
I don't know if John knows how to do that. So go to.
Got it.
Okay, you got it. Okay, we're good.
today's society, it has become somewhat fashionable to think things and say things about and to white people that would not be acceptable if it was said about any other race. And we're being taught that this double standard is not wrong, that it is rather a form of empowerment. They'll attribute negative experiences that they've had with white people to their whiteness. You had an argument in line at the grocery store with a white person, they were acting entitled because they were white. A white driver cut you off when you were driving, they need to check their white privilege. Your actions, your conduct, and your existence, in other words, boil down to your whiteness. And ashamedly, at one point in time, this was how I used to think as well. And beyond the people in my circle, I noticed that many people of color have this sort of blasé attitude, an attitude most particularly pronounced when there are no other white people around. Things are being said not just behind closed doors, but out in the open, not just between close friends, but between complete strangers. So here's the thing. This is something that I've experienced countless times, so I know that there are other people who are experiencing it too. I know it must resonate with at least some of you. The difficulty here is that no matter how many anecdotes I share, they are just that, anecdotes. And people who refuse to believe that this is happening will just chalk it up to my experiences being a fluke. Or worse yet, they'll say I'm lying. So I've compiled some TikTok videos. I want you to take a look at the things that are being said about white people, especially by the younger generation, the kind of statements people wouldn't dare say about people of any other race. Take a look at what is stunningly in vogue in today's society and ask yourselves, where does this lead to years down the line?
You have a token white and you're hanging out with your friend group of color, you need to ask permission from everybody in the group to bring your white friend. Like, don't just bring them with them. I might not be in the mood to deal with white shenanigans that day. That's all I'm saying. And another thing, it feeds into their ego. Like, don't let them think they're a good white person.
Accomplices ask, how can they support Black and Indigenous people of color? And
I got you, Jamie. 1 second.
sometimes I really don't know what to say, but here's one easy way.
Pause it. Pause it.
Just don't have
The fuck is that? What am I currently looking at?
An Indian lady? I don't know.
Okay, cool. Continue.
Play it, Ian.
babies.
Women can single-handedly
Oh, that's a dude. Oh shit, my bad. Thank you for the correction, Ian.
cause the white genocide that they are so afraid of. With 2.25 billion Asian women and 500 million white men, baby, it'll only take 2 generations. In 2 generations, there will no longer be any blonde-haired.
These are some things I noticed about white American culture. Being grounded is a punishment to them. That's what they call punishment. The least grounded, least balanced, most destructive race considers being grounded a punishment? Yeah. They also say really violent phrases. They say things like, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Why do we have to kill the birds? Why is everything so violent? It's almost like one's language and phrases reflects one's nature.
So that new Jeffrey Dahmer movie on Netflix is the perfect example of the sensationalization of white violence. People have a much easier time sympathizing with white criminals than they do with black victims. People think these shows are harmless, but they actually contribute to a much bigger issue. It contributes to the viewpoint that white people are less violent than everyone else, and white violence is something to be consumed in media, and that's it.
What is with Caucasian people and
watch a
like
couple
their
more of these, 'cause I can't
inability
take
to like
anymore.
read a fucking room? Like y'all act like you don't understand shit because y'all be the first ones during a conversation about the Holocaust to get so mad when black people be like, you do realize that the original Jewish people were black, right? White people do not need to explain to anybody about us all bleeding red because, baby, you all are the people that need to learn that lesson. Clearly, history shows that you all are the people that like to pillage and eradicate, enslave and oppress, attempt to suppress greatness because you all simply don't have it.
Right? Here go y'all cum goblins who
Alright,
don't
last one
even
and
live in
pause
the
it again.
fucking city. Which, by the way, the Q-tip people are the last ones to ever talk about somebody stealing anything.
Q-tip
Y'all wouldn't be
people.
in this country had it not been for y'all
That's a
stealing
straight up
it.
racial slur,
But y'all are
bro.
more focused on people looting and trying to get necessities and things that they need. And yes, a TV is a fucking necessity. Thank you. You feel like you're better than because people are out here stealing and you would never. First of all, if you are a Mayo monster, that is how your ancestors got everything from stealing. People are.
And that's a behavior that's
All right,
very
pause, Ian.
common.
All right,
Dude,
pause.
Dude, those are racial slurs. I don't understand how she's like still on TikTok or like the video hasn't been taken down. Like
It gives credence to this guy's argument that being racist against white people is okay. So before we get into discussion, so this, as you can see in this video, there's another like 10 minutes in this video. He has, I think, another 3 minutes of evidence from TikTok, Instagram, whatever social media he used. I think it's been majority, mainly TikTok videos. But after like 3 more minutes, he then goes into another explanation, getting articles and from schools, and they've been implementing policies around the state implementing other policies where it's prejudice against white people, just showing how in his substantiating his argument that we have a rising racist tendency towards white people. So if you guys want more context, go watch and finish the video. We're going to stop it here and get into our opinion discussion. So first question to you guys is, do you agree with his statement? Do you think there is a problem with racism towards white people, and is it become societally acceptable?
Did we just skip?
What do you mean?
Oh, it was my computer then. Like it paused for a second while you were talking, but I got the gist.
I mean, yeah, I think we've kind of said it before on the podcast where like it's only okay to punch up. You can, white Christian dudes, they're fair game, and no one's gonna knock you over for making fun of them or going after them and stuff like that. And I think.
I got a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Why is it considered punching up?
Well, because I think society considers white men to be the original tip of the patriarch. That like they were the ones who previously I guess, hoarded all the wealth and established all the rules and stuff like that. So everything that's ever happened is because of them and their decisions throughout history. So that's why I think once, essentially, it's not really a full-on culture revolution, but once the culture wars started, they became the prime mascot, or the prime symbol for the enemy. And then from there, you're able to just kind of, trickle down all of this like subtle racism that has kind of grown out. And I've always seen it where I've been in places, and whenever somebody mentions like, oh, he's pretty good at doing that for a white guy, like whenever I hear that, I'm just like, well, I mean, what if he's, Latin, or what if he, or there's people in Argentina that are white or something like that. I think the reason I'm thinking of that example is I saw a white guy Latin dancing, and then my friend said that, and I was just like, well, he might be a white light skinned guy from a Latin country, like. So, but I've always heard that, or I've always heard like he should talk to the lawyers for me. He's a white man, or a white man not afraid to talk to the lawyer or something like that. Like, there's
I'll give
all
you an
these
example
kind
from
of.
my personal to support what you're saying. A literal anecdotal example of what you're saying. Literally, I was out camping with some friends, and a drunk white guy came into camp trying to get a free beer off us. Because mind me, I'm half white. I'm not full white. I'm half white. And they look at me and say, "Gene, handle your kind." It's like, what was what were y'all just saying? Like,
I mean, were they being serious though, or were they really actually
I
trying
mean,
to mess with you?
obviously they were joking. I mean, they were half joking,
Okay.
half serious because it was obviously
Yeah.
in a joking way. But they were also serious because they were uncomfortable with a drunk white guy in our camp trying to be, weird, trying to get a beer.
Yeah.
Said
So
something
it's like
similar.
yes and no.
Said something similar like that to Gene, but it was more of a had less to do with handle your kind and more to do with, and it never occurred. It was just hypothetically speaking, threat. I that's out from outside looking in, based on I guess we're just going with stereotypes and generalities or whatever. I would be seen as a bigger threat to a police officer than John. Stereotypically, I'm not saying legit, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like on the news tabloids and whatever. So, like I've said to Gene before, like if we get pulled over or something like that, you're doing all the talking. Like I've said something like that to him before, but that's less to do with deal with your kind and more to do with me assuming that I'd be seen as more of a threat than Gene in that situation specifically. So I have two things to say though. Um, one
Well, hold on,
is
Josh. You finish your thought because I did interrupt you to give an example to your
I'm
point you were
sorry.
making.
Go for it.
My thought was honestly that I had actually seen the same tell signs that this guy is talking about, and it's something I kind of really started recently pushing against. Like my biggest example too was that movie that came out, Everything's Gonna Be All White. Or like that commercial for it. When I saw that, I was just like, dude, if you literally take that noun of white and replace it with any other color of race or whatever, this is the most racist thing you've ever seen. But because it's white, it's okay to say it. And I mean, you can bring up the trailer if you want, so that you can see my example. But yeah, it's kind of what I saw. So I agree with him.
Search up the trailer and send it to the Discord for Ian while John says his point.
Two things. One, have y'all ever been jumped?
No, not really. I mean, I've been like antagonized and stuff like that, but not necessarily like nobody's ever come up from behind me.
So if you ever been jumped, right? When you get your opportunity to jump the person who jumped you, you normally go crazy or go overboard, or like there's more spite in it. Where
I
I
see
don't know
what
how
you
to
mean.
describe it. The feeling, like the original, I don't want to say original, the most looked at
Prevalent?
racist period of time would be that of the Americas in slavery. Like that's the most looked at as far as like I
I
guess
did
speak
too.
on it.
Yeah.
So just because it's the most looked at, or regardless of the fact, when there's a changing of a guard, right? When there's a changing of a guard, there has to be a sacrificial lamb when the guard is changing. white man is, for better or for worse, wrong or right. That's why I asked what's punching up. A white man would be that symbolic figure of the old guard. And so now when the new guard is coming, the most symbolic thing is always attacked. You think about when Germany finally fell and they broke down the wall. Yeah, they won the war. Like the war against Germany had already been won. But breaking down that wall was the symbolic, the thing that was vogue, I guess was the word used to represent that thing. So my point of saying if you've ever been jumped before, you come back and you antagonize almost twice as much. The 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 root of why you're doing it. I'm not saying racism is racism and none is better than the other. I guess if we're gonna talk about it, we should kind of like, I don't know, point out some things. So the idea behind racism now is almost like revenge, like the sentiment. Like, even if you haven't really been offended yourself, when you comfortably say that in a setting, it's as if you're getting your lick back. It's as if you're getting revenge or whatever has happened to you or your people. Whereas initially, that time period that I said was the most looked at wasn't about revenge. Now, I'm not saying for better or worse. I'm just saying the root was different. So yeah, I agree where it's becoming cyclical, but that one is clearly wrong, as in there was physicality to that racism to where you could obviously say it was wrong. Social racism is hard to pinpoint. Not hard to pinpoint, but it's hard to, like, you can say it, you can see it, but it's hard to, like, it's not tangible. You can't grab it. You get what I'm saying? Like, you can see pockets of, but I can just say, oh, that's somebody sharing their opinion. Like, social racism can be protected by the First Amendment. Like, those are different things. Whereas if you're talking about, because it seems like they're comparing everything to slavery, that was physical. Now, I'm not saying again it's worse or better, but I do see a difference. And I guess my question is, the remedy for slavery is to stop it. What is the remedy for something like this spreading where there's no touch, it's not tangible? I think this is harder to deal with
I guess I don't. Well, I want to push back on the tangible. Like, what do you mean by it's not tangible? Because I guess we probably should watch that section where he actually gives you evidence of them tangibly putting in policies and
I'm not seeing the affected victims actually suffer.
because I mean, you could go on the videos and probably find them on the internet if you really wanted to see the videos. But I would argue the reason why you don't see the videos is because it doesn't generate clicks like how black victims generate clicks.
Correct.
So that's why I
But
understand the point you're making. I just don't think it's a valid.
Are people going around beating up white people?
Yeah.
People just going around beating up white people because they're white?
Yeah. Is it to a point where it's like, I get your point. Is it happening? Yes, it is happening. But is it happening at rates to where it needs to be addressed? I can't say for sure. I'm sure if I did some kind of intense research and documentation, I could find enough substantial evidence to justify that. But whether or not it's happening, yes, it is happening.
No. Okay. Well, then I'm not being facetious here.
Yeah, I got you.
Is happening. Everything is happening currently, right now. Everything is happening. Now, again, my point is to say that uh racism against white people isn't happening or it's okay. That's not my point. My point was actually the physicality behind slavery versus this being more social. I think this social racism is harder to deal with than that actual racism, because it's clear when you're seeing somebody bleed.
That's
You see
fair.
somebody,
Okay,
you get what I'm saying?
Okay,
That's my point. I wasn't trying to, I wasn't saying like, oh, it's not happening, but how do we deal with this?
Well, for me, what I've been thinking about as like defining it is that I've kind of come to this analogy that it's no longer about getting rid of the whip. It's about taking your turn with the whip.
Yes.
And so a lot of people, like, all this stuff, it's like people just want their turn with it now. And so I think you kind of, to end it, you have to convince those people at some point that it's not worth it and to put it down. Because if we move forward a few decades from now, and then that girl's TikTok comes up and people are like, "Look at how fucking racist you were," and then she gets canceled all of a sudden and stuff like that. Like, in several decades time, like this might come back to all bite them in the ass. The same way that like fucking people blackfacing 20 years ago at a party in the 1980s is now, biting politicians in the ass and stuff like that. So I think you just have to convince people, like, it's not about picking up the whip. It's just about, like, throwing it away altogether.
But it goes back to John's point. How do we do that? And I guess my answer to John's question is I'm going to take the Morgan Freeman approach. Let's stop talking about race. Like, literally, we got to start we have to stop introducing that caveat in the discussion as black man fights white man or white man. Like, I personally think that's what we have to do.
It don't work.
I agree with that. I don't think it works either, but I think it's a solid step because I think the problem is our media. It's very lucrative for our media to shine lights on racial issues, and then it begs the question: are racial issues genuinely an issue? I don't think they were ever that big of an issue, but they've become an issue because the media has put it so much in the forefront of our focus that we've made it an issue. We've artificially made race an issue again. That's
if you add any substance to water, it's going to be hard as fuck to get that substance completely out. You may never be able to get that substance out.
Titration. Yep, I get it. It's a process.
It's a process. And so to that point, have you ever had a group of friends play a video game, take turns, and then they right before your turn they said, "Oh, let's be done playing this game." What feeling would you have?
I still got my turn.
Now, it's easy to say, "Oh, the parties offended or that feel offended should be the bigger people and stop talking about it when you've had your turn." That's how they're going to feel.
That's true. That's the
It
difficult
was like
thing
asking,
to...
like, who's the bigger person? Like, who really ever wants to be the bigger person and not get it off their chest?
I think that is the hard part, but I think it also spits in the face of like all the influential
civil rights leaders. Yes,
yeah, basically what they were preaching, and then you're just kind of like throwing away what they said to do. Except for Malcolm X, I do kind of like he was aggressive.
Malcolm X switched before he died.
Yeah, he did switch because he found religion.
I don't know if I don't know too much about what he preached. I just know he was initially aggressive, and I guess now you all are telling me he was less aggressive towards the end of his life. But one thing he did say that I always thought was interesting was that he kind of had like this is like your ground now. There was no like like he wasn't about like going back to Africa or going back to the motherlands for whatever minority group you were. He's like, you're here now, like you're born here, make your nest here, and just kind of like deal with the waves and stuff like that. And that I kind of do agree with. But I also do agree with because of the mixing pot that is the country. It was something I learned in college where it's not about like assimilation of everything. It's more so about tolerance of everything. Like if you try to assimilate and everything,
Later, Jamie. See you next week, man.
I feel like you run the risk of stepping on somebody's toes, because then I start acting a certain way to fit in with this certain group of people. Whereas like if I just retain my who I am really in my natural state, and they accept me, then I feel like it's much more comfortable to be around that person than it is if I'm like parroting motions or mannerisms or phrases or cultural like ideas just to try to fit in, because then that keeps people out.
Let me ask y'all: when y'all were speaking about civil rights leaders, right? This is gonna be one of those. God damn it. Okay. So you know how I like to say people like to piggyback off black people shit and then right?
Yeah.
There were a lot of videos of Asian people, which I find interesting because they're the race that most closely assimilates to white people. White people really don't have huh?
You can make that argument.
As far as like clothing, just stuff like that. I mean, you could technically say they assimilate with everybody, but you get what I'm saying. Like, anyway, so it's interesting because it feels like black people was started hating on white people, and then everybody was like, "Oh, let's get in on that." And let's also talk about what they did to us. But I feel like it's people. What's that word you always use, Gene? For like when you have a false morality for something, but you're
Pseudo.
yeah, but no, a false like you're pandering. There you go. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. You're pandering to whatever everybody seems to be on. So yeah, I agree with him. It's been going on. Obviously, this is probably going to be there's going to be an anti-culture that pops up, which is either going to be extreme or not extreme. Chances are it's going to be extreme. We've already probably really seen it, but like to Doc's point, I do hate when people say I don't see race, I don't see color, or I can't wait till like race isn't a thing or anymore because we just have to find a way to like there's a way to respect each other, dude. So like to me it's like the solution isn't getting rid of individuality. The solution is understanding individuality and taking the time and patience to
Well, when I said stop talking about it, I don't mean like don't acknowledge race exists. I mean like I guess to be more specific.
I don't know.
I mean
People
let's
say
stop
that
shining
phrase,
a
not you.
light on it. Like I know you're not. I'm trying to be more specific with my point I said earlier, which was literally if something happens where it's obvious racism, like you got a white guy being prejudiced against a black guy or vice versa. When something like that happens, we can't as a media cannot help but put that at the forefront of the news and blow it up and bring so much attention to it. And it's like, how often does that really happen? And if it and it I don't personally, I don't think that happens a lot, but because it garners so much clicks, it garners so much attention, they're going to spread it. I don't understand why can't we share what's that one video of two children being pushed by their parents? One was a white baby, one was a black baby, and the two black babies end up reaching out like holding each other's hand. Like why can't we do something like wholesome like that? Because I guess to put it
Humans
to
be designed that way, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm, I'm starting to get more cynical and like humans are humans. We are the way we were meant to be. Self-discipline and all those stuff curb a lot of things. Self-assessment curbs a lot of things, but we're attracted to what we're attracted to. Why are we naturally attracted to stories that are more negative, I guess, just to and like is that a natural thing? Because I
yes.
honestly
Want to know why? It goes to the argument I had with Doc many episodes past, and we actually talked about this because it's past Friday, which was because humans are innately evil. We love seeing hate. We love seeing violence. We love seeing conflict. Because in my belief, humans are innately evil. Which, and I'm not trying to hash out this argument again, Doc, but you can address it when I'm done. And that's why if people were innately good, we wouldn't see shit like this. People's desire for destruction, for hate, for violence, for controversy, for content, for a conflict wouldn't be as financially lucrative if people were innately good.
wouldn't we be wouldn't be wouldn't we be innately both?
No, we're
Like the
innately
same way that we feel hate, the same way we feel love. Or like
we're innately evil or bad or sinful or whatever the phrase you want to use, but every one of us contains the potential for good. That's the full thought. We're innately sinful, we're innately evil, we're born with the original sin per the religious Christian views,
you said
but
we're born from
within
sin,
us
that's true.
I guess you could say we're both technically speaking saying the same truth. I guess just the way we're saying it, which I think matters in my opinion.
No, it does matter. What you're not being it's not semantics. You're being I get what you're saying. But I think I lean more towards you're born with both and like you just take a path. There's a balance, if you will.
So you
But
believe in
like
the phrase "we were born with two wolves inside us, one good wolf, one evil wolf, and whichever one you feed more is what you comes to light more." That
correct,
phrase, you believe in that phrase?
correct,
Yeah,
correct. I
I
think
would
we have
agree
the
with that too.
potential for both.
Oh,
Because like as you were saying, like the innate evil thing, like do you really think like say one child of a particular race and skin coloration or whatever looks at another one and immediately assumes they don't look like me, they're they're my enemy.
Yes.
Do you think a kid really assumes that right off the bat?
No, 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 no. Okay, can I take an example outside of race? I understand this conversation is about race, but can I use a similar example but not using race?
Well, sure, but let me finish my point.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
that's what I'm thinking about. Like, I don't see like a kid innately having that mentality, but I think if a kid grows up looking at their parents say that uh, they're only in this uh, position in life because of another group of people, and he hears that, then when he sees that other kid somewhere outside, then it's like, oh, it's us versus them. But I think if that mentality or those conversations are never had in front of the kid, then there's no reason why you should automatically, outside of nervousness of like, I've never seen somebody like that. I don't think they should innately have some kind of contempt for the other person just because they look different.
Now you're right, they shouldn't, but the problem is they do. Like, I guess I'm not understanding your point. Like, yes, people shouldn't feel that way. I completely agree with you. Do people feel that way all the time?
I don't know. I really don't think it. I think it's just like as you kind of move through your environment, you start kind of drawing lines. Because I mean, people are allowed to have prejudice and stuff like that. Like you have to discriminate. Like you want to like apples more than you like pears.
Yeah,
You
we
know,
have, yep.
you like and I
Discrimination exists in all categories.
exactly. And so I think to some extent, when it gets more serious, it grows into like full on prejudice between racial groups. But I really don't think like an 8-year-old Hispanic kid looks at an 8-year-old black kid and goes, he's darker than me, he's my enemy, or he's lighter than me, he's my enemy. I
Completely
generally,
agree. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think that's something that they look at their environment and hear around their environment from other people, and then eventually start to assume, oh, my dad lost his job because the white guy did this, so now when I see the white guy, he's the enemy, and stuff like that. I don't think it's necessarily that they're born with this animal aggression that they're trying to temper from day one.
Well, I think you're conflating things. I think you're conflating my point that people are innately evil to people are innately racist. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. Racism is taught. I completely believe in that, and I will definitely agree with the point about racism being taught. Racism is taught. You don't. A baby is not born hating a white baby or a black baby. They don't even know they're white. They don't even know they're black. Like, racism is not a born behavior; it's a taught behavior. But the born with the original sin, as my religion expresses, evil, that's in us all. And I'll use myself as an example. When I was a child, I didn't understand life and death. I didn't understand the extremes of playing with animals, to the point I was visiting my cousins when I don't know how, I was young. I don't remember how young I was, but I was little, like 5, maybe 6 years old. And I was playing, my cousin brought home their class gerbil. And I was playing with the gerbil, having fun, and I was making the gerbil fly, not understanding that me throwing the animal in the air and not catching it resulted in the gerbil dying. I didn't have the understanding that me throwing the gerbil in the air and letting it fall will result in that gerbil's death. I tortured that poor animal, and that poor animal died from that. That right there, that is evil. And as a child, I did not know what I was doing because it's naivety, it's ignorance. It's maybe a bad example, but my point is children are born with that in them. You think kids know that if you slap me in the face, I'm gonna have self-control not to want to slap you back? No, I'm a child. I'm gonna slap you back. You hit me. Or better yet, when I was I'll keep using me as an example. When I was little, my cousin again, they had so much money they were saving for doing all these side jobs. I came across their piggy bank and I took money out of their piggy bank. My dad had to teach me that's wrong. We are born doing evil things. We had to learn this is evil. You can't do this. Why you can't do this X, Y, and Z. It goes back to this question we had Friday. Why do humans have to go through all these different experiences to understand why this said thing is evil? We have to do that because we're born evil. We don't know between good and evil. Therefore, we default to evil because evil is instant gratification.
See,
And real quick,
I think you're crossing evil with ignorance, and I don't necessarily know
you could say that. Okay, that's fair.
if
Okay,
ignorance is evil, because I think intentional harm is evil, whereas unintentional harm I don't think is evil.
But it's okay, so I guess you're kind of getting out of topic here a little bit, but I am curious to pursue this. So, do you think when it comes to evil, intent does or doesn't matter? Is evil not just evil? I don't think it does. I don't think it does. To the individual person, it matters, but evil is evil no matter the intent.
I think intent plus understanding.
So if I
Um,
didn't
if
intend to kill the person, but the person died, is that not a level of
you
evil?
understood what you were doing could lead to the person dying. That's where ignorance would come in. If you do not understand that what you are doing can lead to somebody dying.
I mean,
Murder is evil. The act.
I guess that's what I'm trying to
Person.
say. Like the act itself is evil, but if you want to add nuance to it, which is this is where the mercy and forgiveness come into play, we have to understand the nuances of what happened. You were a child.
Right.
You don't understand that throwing a dribble in the air and letting it fall down will result in its death. You were ignorant. You were naive. And now you know. Don't do it again. Or in the case of you want to say the murder, you didn't know that what's an example? Speeding on the road while you're drunk and accidentally hitting somebody result in their death. You get a pass, but the action itself was still evil. But because you got to add the nuances where we get, I guess you could say the mercy forgiveness thing involved.
So what about a small child, maybe 2 years old, sharing food or sharing something with another child and not connecting the dots that they're going to have less of their item now than they had before, but more going along with the feeling, I want this person to enjoy this thing. Would that then be innate good?
Explain the
Yeah,
example again.
I think it would
A
be
small
essentially.
child
Oh,
before
I
done.
was like, essentially, it's one kid giving, I don't know, half his sneaker bar to another kid just because he likes
It's
their company.
it's sacrifice. So technically speaking,
Yeah.
yes.
But the kid didn't understand that they were sacrificing anything. They just knew that they wanted that other child to enjoy.
Enjoy. Awesome. That's good.
That's what I'm saying. So whatever example you give, you can technically flip it. So
I
you're
mean, you
still
can
gonna
do that
end
about
up
anything, but we got to now what we got to do is quantify how often are kids stealing from other kids and how often are kids giving to other kids. We generally don't. We honestly, we generally
so you're
don't
saying
know. I am a
whatever the most common occurrence is between the two of good and bad would then be see, then you know what?
I view it as a scale, honestly. Like we got a good
Then you
and
I know
or
we're
not a
going off, but I'm
scale.
enjoying the conversation. On your own scale, good would still outweigh the bad.
Well, of course,
Reason
I
being,
completely agree with that. Yeah,
so then we'd still be innately good then.
yeah. I'm disagree. No, well,
Like,
I get
kind
the
of.
point you're trying to get to. I just don't agree with it. But I see the point
Because
you're making.
I see
because
the innately good thing. My thing is that, like, I feel like you can do wrong out of ignorance, but I wouldn't
right,
attribute that as evil. I
correct.
still think it's wrong and bad. I just don't think it's evil. Because I think for me, evil is genuine intent. I have calculated everything. I have weighed the morality. I have weighed every aspect of this, and I am still willing to hurt you. That is like pure evil to me. Whereas, like, just to bring it back to this guy's uh, video. So like those people that are saying all those really racist things in their TikToks, you think they're intentionally doing it?
No,
Because
they
I
don't know better. But
e-
that's still what they're doing is still contributing to evil, in my opinion. So like that's why I don't understand this intent part. Like intent doesn't matter. Evil is evil. If the intention is there, yeah, it makes it worse. Like you are now an arbiter of evil. Like you are evil incarnate, I guess, to get my point across or to paint the picture. But evil is evil no matter the intent. Like I
well,
guess I'm not
I
understanding the intent part. I think you're fixing on the intent too much. Like I don't dispute that intent makes it worse, but evil is still evil despite intent.
well, I think that's dangerous because then you
Just
run
like
across.
good is good despite intent. People can accidentally do good intending to do bad.
I
Yeah,
think we're
true.
attributing I think we're attributing a general term to specific things where
That's fair.
it's too much of a
Yeah,
gap to use the word evil
That's
and
fair.
specify it to those things. But still
yeah.
to that point, Gene, even on that scale, the reason why I say good outweighs the evil because those people who are doing evil or are taking the evil actions or whatever, they go home, they're nice to their families, they're nice to their chances are most people who do evil are nice to more people than they are mean. if you will, to people. So the balance would still lean like good. It's effort to be evil.
I think it's effort
It's
on
effort
both.
to be good. It's effort to be good as well. But like when you're taking something, it's an aggressive action. And I always view evil as negatively affecting somebody else.
So real quick, I want to address this guy's comments. Damn, dude. Let me read a few of them, and I want to address one in particular. So first off, he said, "People mix race and ethnicity. Would you say that to a baby? What the little baby do that's evil, but he born? Adding moral value to arbitrary traits like skin color is a cultural issue. My man's really saying babies are evil. You missed the point completely. That's manslaughter, not the same as murder, morally or legally. I'm gonna address the point about my man's really saying babies are evil. I'm not saying babies are evil. You're missing the point. What I'm saying is, if you inherently we're all born with evil, and I use babies as an example because they're born. What I'm saying is, if you leave a baby to its own devices without teaching it anything, a baby will most likely grow up and do more evil than it does good because babies are selfish creatures. They require so much attention from us. And if you leave baby on its own, it's going to prioritize self-preservation. And self-preservation always leads or tilts more towards evil actions like theft.
Think I still think it's a bland canvas, and the environment is the environment, and
100%.
the people around you are the paint. So
I
like
I'm not trying to take out
if
environment completely. What
if
I'm saying is, since we're all since we all tilt more towards evil, if you leave a baby to its own devices, the environment it's in will most likely affect it more towards the evil side.
okay, boom.
If that's
We all
if that's a
lean
better
we
way to
all
characterize.
lean we all lean more towards survival.
Agreed.
Now, what you view as surviving or what you need to survive is subjective. So I still wouldn't I feel like you're encompassing too much area space with the word.
Because
And there are
it's a very
people that
broad
don't,
subject. It's hard to
yeah,
be specific with something like this. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
no, I feel you. I
I
feel
also
you.
think it's a
No, but
loaded word
I completely did
because
understand that you weren't saying that babies are just born evil. But
yeah,
to
I think
your
it's a very
point,
loaded word because you run the risk of like when you use the word evil, it's so heavy that it like has a call to action. So
But I said sin, but the problem
yeah,
is born with original
but
sin is too religious also. Like that's why I'm trying to use different words that don't tie into my religion. Because I mean, to completely
Gene, I got you.
transparent, most of my beliefs are founded on my Christian faith.
I got
So
you, Gene.
me to not lean on my Christian faith and explain it is very difficult for me. Because would you understand? Like I know you guys would, but if I was talking to most people out here who usually aren't religious, generally speaking, me saying people are born with original sin, they don't understand what that means, and they're not willing to understand what that means. That's why if I use more provocative language like evil, it's the same point, but it's just
I think you're misidentifying the part of evil that you're talking about in your own scenario.
okay.
You're actually talking about the environment, trying not to talk about the environment.
Yeah, I've
Because the baby would only be inherently evil because it was born into an evil environment. So what you're actually identifying is the fact that adults have a more evil leaning environment that the baby, which would be the blank canvas, comes into. So by that being the area that or whatever the child was growing up in, then they would be evil. And more often than not, you will learn more selfish things from like, oh, protect yourself, or if you have to abandon your friends, or da 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 da, look out for yourself first. More self-serving things you will learn from your family or whatever that aren't like necessarily evil, more survival tactics. But I get what you're saying. But I think you're still talking about the environment. I don't think you're actually talking about people.
I think
Because if
it's
the environment's good,
I actually think it's really convoluted because I do agree with Gene that like if you leave a kid
it
without
is
any
convoluted.
attention,
It is.
they'll eventually become very selfish and sociopathic. But I think it's even worse if you have a kid who's like alone and then you just feed them information that says you need to be selfish, you need to survive by your own, you're the only one, because then you just darken them even more. And so, but you also run the risk of like a kid who's got everything, who just hangs around with minds that tell him he needs to harden up and darken and stuff like that so that he can survive for something he really truly doesn't need. But that just like that, that's would be the way that his friend group wants him to be, and then he ends up doing something stupid. Um, I think justice wise, it is very cold to just be like, uh, you have to take out intent when it comes to like justice because you want justice to be served for people that unwillingly committed manslaughter and stuff like that. But I don't necessarily attribute them to evil. I think evil for me has direct intent. Like they have to willingly 100% it is a yes on every level in their mind to do harm for them to truly commit evil. I think they can commit wrong unintentionally and that still needs to be punished in order for them to learn. But I don't think evil is an overall stamp for unintentional and intentional. Well, for unintentional.
That's my last point on it. Also, the whole conversation is technically built on the assumption that we could take away certain things and that the human being is designed to be able to operate without those things in order to become good or evil when we are designed to go along with the complexities of life in order to shift and change. So it's like if we weren't made like this, it wouldn't be like this. I know it sounds so stupid, but like I don't think we're allowed to take away anything actually in the conversation of good and evil and how it comes along or whatever, because that's the only way we were designed to become good or evil or grow was to interact with our environment. So I don't think we could actually take away anything and it'll always be just convoluted, like Doc said.
Well, have you ever heard of you guys have obviously heard of Taoism, the yin and yang thing?
Hmm.
Well, that's what the yin and yang is. It's a compass. It's a moral compass for your actions. So like whenever you hit a point where you need to make a decision, you basically take up the yin and yang and then you flip it and you go, which one am I going for? And so you go, because sometimes like you want to commit something wrong and you see the good in that wrong action. But then other times you want to do something good, but you see the evil in that good action. And so even if you're like, oh, well, I'm obviously going to commit, the good all the time and you're always going to land on the white side, there's still that speck of black in there that's like,
In the white.
there's still some evil in this. I mean, I know you posting a civil rights TikTok seems like a good thing to do, but what you just said was extremely fucking racist. That's the black spot in the yin yang symbol. Whereas if the other one, if you kind of ignored it, I know it sounds, evil to ignore something like civil, racism, but the goodness in there is that you don't actually become a racist yourself. And so,
To
as you,
Gene's point too. Go ahead.
well, I was just saying, I was like, as you were talking about the complexities of life, like I think approaching life with that compass is the best way to navigate it, in my opinion.
I agree. And to Gene's point too, if you do put faith in it first, the the most tested would be the most desired by any deity, the most properly tested, I guess. So to Gene's point, it would make more sense for there to be more temptation to do bad than good because you'd want your children or whatever it is to be the most tested and proven.
My last point. Let's move on because we kind of on this one for 45 minutes, 50 minutes actually. But I just want to answer his question he had for me. He said, "Wouldn't Christian beliefs align more with environmental coercing evil than babies being inherently evil?" They believe in both. They believe in the environment manipulating coercion, and they also believe we're born with evil, with sin. I'm just going to use the Christian verbiage. We're born with sin. Each of us has sin in us. We're born with it. Can you overcome it? Of course. That's what the Bible preaches. Are there environmental factors that can facilitate you more down a path or in a path that you weren't originally in, like mess you up? Yes. Both are true. Both, and Christians believe in both.
Gene, actually, you saying that makes me, I know it may sound like disagree a little bit more because technically we're born of sin because of where we're
Yeah.
coming from.
Yeah.
So that from would still speak to an environment, even though it is a womb, it's because we're coming from man that we are born of sin in the Bible. So I would technically say the environment still would be like the womb would be the environment.
I mean, you're now you're just pulling hairs at this point.
No. I'm really not. I'm saying verbatim that I believe that's what the words meant. That's why we were born of sin, not with it in us, but because we were coming from a human being. That's why. Like the baby
That's fair.
can't have. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't trying to be.
Yeah, no, I guess, I mean, that's fair. I still think that there's a battle. I guess if I can get away from my mystical blah 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 and just be more precise, is I think we're all born with a battle. I think each of us
I
has a
completely
specific
agree.
battle we have to overcome. Whether or not we recognize that as something evil that's in us that we gotta either reject or something good in us that we gotta harness. We're born with something, some kind of challenge that's in us, and that's where my thing is. We're born with the original sin, or we're born from the, however you want to use that phrase. We're born from the sin. It's in us. Like, and I use me as an example. Lust was deep in me. I was born lustful as a kid. You know me as a child, John. I was a lustful child in my youth. I was crazy with it. That was in me. I didn't. You could probably make the argument from an outside perspective that maybe there were some outside influences that made me more lustful than I probably should have been. But I know my mind when I was a kid. I was constantly thinking about girls in a lustful way. I was going about way being perverted. Like, I was a very lustful person. Like, that was in me. And there are other factors of other sins that were in me, but not as prevalent as lust. Those were just like caveats. Like, when you're deep in one sin, other sins tend to, have their little influence. But each of us we're born with our own unique battle. And those battles are either a battle of harnessing the good that's in you or overcoming the evil that's in you.
I agree with that.
I'm not trying to blatantly say babies are evil. You're just not seeing the point and thinking abstractly enough, if that's how you're seeing what I'm trying to say.
I don't think you're saying babies are evil. I think you're saying people in general. And I'm saying because we're born in a negative environment that you can't, it's impossible to remove the environment. So, yes, I agree with you, but I'm saying the actual determining factor is the environment, which we can't escape. So, yeah.
I agree. We're on Earth. The only way you can escape it is by going to heaven. Good luck is all I gotta say.
There's no baby coming out. Nah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm gonna go back.
Let's go to the next topic because let's probably make this a quick one because you're on this last conversation for a hot minute. Okay, so yeah, me too. I like this conversation about good and evil. That was fun. All right, police bust into Arkansas family's home, arrest dad for piercing son's ear in viral video. Let's watch the video first, and then let me read the article. Go for it, Ian.
What are y'all doing?
Why are you in my house? Why are y'all in my house? Why are you in my house? Guys, I'm asking a question.
For what?
You're a body piercing, okay? In your home. He was not unlawful.
Body art without a license.
Is that the flag on his arm?
All right, let me read this article now. It's relatively short that I can get through it all. Okay, so an Arkansas father is facing a felony charge after his arrest Thursday for piercing his son's ear. The chaos began during a town police department welfare check after a Springdale High School resource officer reported a student telling classmates his drunk father, quote, put him in a chokehold and shoved the piercing in his ear, cops said in a statement. Jeremy Sherlin, 45, admitted to piercing his son's ear, but refused to let officers speak to the boy and would not answer any further questions. Police later returned in numbers with an arrest warrant issued by the Washington County Prosecutor's Office, which issued the mayhem captured on the video. In the TikTok posted by Sherlin's son, 4 stone-faced officers were seen inside the Sherlin's home, pinning the father against the wall and slapping handcuffs on him. Quote, I wanted my ears pierced, Sherlin's son is heard yelling at officers in the non-viral video. So that video up the top wasn't the full video. When they're walking to the police car, you then hear the son, who's the one who recording the video, say like, he said that I wanted my ears pierced. He's the one who said
I
that.
want to see the ear piercing video.
I don't think they recorded that video, but I could be wrong.
Twitter.
Go on Twitter and look if you can, John, while I read this.
Got you.
As confusion set in, Sherlin's wife ran over to the officers and repeatedly asked why they were in the house and demanded to know what cause they had to arrest her husband. Why are you doing this? Sherlin's son asked the officers while they were manhandling his father. During the chaos, an officer explains to the woman that the father is being arrested for performing, quote, body art without a license, to which Sherlin let out an exaggerated laugh and sarcastically echoes the officer, seemingly baffled by the charges. Officers then attempted to escort the father out of his home, but Sherlin put up a brief struggle, forcing police to shove him out of the front door. I guess this is a tweet from the Free My Boy. I pierced my ear a year ago and he got arrested because of it. As officers marched, I think that was a ad. I read an ad. Oops. As officers marched the irate father down the suburban street, his wife and son followed, both in total disbelief at the situation. It takes 4 cops coming into my house with no permission, and busted in my front door. His wife screams at the cops as they move toward their vehicles with their cuffed husband. I wanted my ears pierced, Sherlin's son yells at the officers as they place his dad in the patrol car. In Arkansas, it is illegal for artists to perform body art on a person under 16 years of age, regardless of parental consent. Violation of that law is a Class D felony. Since Sherlin was not a licensed artist, it was also illegal for him to perform body art in any unlicensed facility. The dad was also charged with endangering the welfare of a minor, refusing to submit to arrest, and obstructing governmental operations. He had a $1,500 bond released on Saturday. Officers told Jeremy he was under arrest and explained the probable cause for the arrest. Jeremy refused to comply. Officers then took him into custody. The statement read. Okay, so I guess the first question is...
My question is, how old's the son? Did it say?
16. I'm pretty sure it said 16.
Well, then he's at the legal limit, isn't he?
Let me double check for you. Hold on real quick. Not on my bed. Sorry. Cat, throw up! It's saying here how old the son is. He has to be at most 16, maybe 15. I don't know if it says if he's a freshman or something like that. But we're going to assume, let's say 15. Let's say 15. Let's say he's a year away from the legal age because he's in high school. Because it said right here the...
Well, if he's being charged for it, I'm assuming that, yeah, he's just under it.
Yeah.
But I think what escalated it the most was that statement from that other kid that it was a drunk dad that threw himself on his kid and then forcibly pierced his ear.
Yeah, I want to address that because I think that's what happened. It was I wouldn't say miscommunication. There was just an assumption from secondhand hearing. And I generally don't know. I could be wrong. It could be the son asked the dad to pierce my ear. The son being a little baby bitch, probably a bad way to characterize it, and afraid of the pain. So the dad was like, get over here, let me just get it done with. And then the kid was joking with the kid, like, yeah, I was being a bitch. He had to put me in a chokehold, and he was drunk while it happened. Like, it just seems like a resource officer took things out of context and escalated a situation that did not need to happen and now caused this.
Yeah, it was a really bad game of telephone. And,
exactly.
All of a sudden.
Too much gray area. What they charged him for have nothing to do with what actually happened.
I agree completely.
Why
and it's
could they
also
charge
wild.
him for it?
Yeah, it's also wild that the government can arrest you for piercing your own son's ear. That's my child. And I know I probably shouldn't bring this in the conversation, but it's wild that you can get your child transitioned underage, but you can't pierce their ear underage. I think that's wild.
Well, this is Arkansas. I don't think they can transition. That's why. I mean, if that law exists, then I would assume that an anti-transition law exists in Arkansas.
It might. I honestly, I don't know what to say. I just trying as a whole, this whole narrative, like this happening is kind of wild with what's going on with transitioning youths.
I do agree with that, but like more to the point I was trying to make, I just don't think that. Just think it's wild that they heard it, they were concerned, whatever. They know, they know, they know this is not a kid of abuse, and I guess they went for a welfare check. They didn't like how he interacted with them, and they said, "Fuck you. We're gonna come and arrest you." That gray area there, I do not like.
I
That
completely agree with.
is
I think
my
John. Yeah,
problem.
I think
Well,
John's
not,
right.
I do
100%.
not like.
I actually think what's scarier is the amount of serious crimes they can tack on during the engagement.
That's what I'm saying. Because what they're charging him for has nothing to do with y'all are actually just concerned about something. Y'all are charging him for, well, we can just charge you for this, and then they can
Yeah.
charge you for resisting. Then they can
Yeah. He's like, we saw you jaywalking, but now you're running away, so now you're resisting arrest, and like these are actual
and then
felonies.
look,
And you're just like, what?
you got the
Like,
cuff on you, right? You yank your arm. Now it's assaulting an officer. Like, dude, the way they can just by the time you get to the jail, you got 20 felonies.
it's wild that it's actually a class D felony just to do that piercing. Like he kind of is like a cool dad. Like this 15-year-old kid's like, yo, I want a piercing. The dad's like, I got you. Nope, straight felony already. Like that's wild.
The law was made for torturing kids.
Continue.
To not torture, like you can't
Oh,
like
okay.
if a kid was being tortured, like kid got a kid locked up in my basement and nails and I'm piercing the kids,
Oh,
like
okay.
I'm
I
actually
see. I see.
torturing a kid.
It
So
was
when I
created
get
with the extremes
arrested,
in mind.
they'll tack on these charges to that. That's supposed to be associated with something completely different, and they're misusing it.
Agreed.
Yeah, or like I don't know, like 13-year-olds coming into body shops and getting work done when they shouldn't be. Like a
Yeah,
professional taking money for it and everything like that too.
I've seen so many kids nowadays in high school with their TikToks with tattoos and piercings, and if this article, class D felony is true, then why are other parents getting arrested or other artists, tattooists, or piercers getting arrested? Like it seems, like John's point, it seems oddly situational just to justify you arresting this man, or coincidental.
That's like me going 10 miles over the speed limit, getting arrested for attempted murder.
Yeah. Or
Because technically,
fleeing
me
an arrest
speeding
for
was
10 months.
Reckless
getting
driving.
arrested for attempted murder, endangering the public, terror, just random shit. Just because you can tack on. Technically, everything is everything. You can tack on whatever. Talk your way into attempted murder. When you got in this car, you said, "I'm gonna speed because I want to kill somebody." Like you can say whatever. So when they allow shit like this, it's wild. It's really wild, and I can see why there are people who are in jail, rightfully so, probably, but in jail way longer than they probably should be.
Or paying bail for something they shouldn't be paying bail for.
Yeah.
Now they're financially out because of something that did not need to happen.
Yeah. That part
You know
really
what's
sucks.
crazy? In any other avenue, like in any other I guess area of doing anything, there being a financial incentive to do things in a way that would be crooked would literally be not like it wouldn't be allowed, but we allow it in government. Like I can't go to a customer or whatever and like take like a bribe or like be incentivized to do something for them that I wouldn't do for another customer. I wouldn't be allowed to go out. You know what I'm saying? My company would say that's against the rules. But things like that in the government where I can just be incentivized financially to harm or make it worse for the citizens
To
is
make criminals.
allowed.
To make
Yeah,
criminals.
like how is that allowed? In the NFL, there was the Pittsburgh Steelers. No, it was the Saints. They got charged with hit gate or some shit like that. Bounty gate, boom. They were saying, hey man, you hit somebody hard enough to take them out the game, we got an extra 50,000 for you. We got an extra 20,000 for you. We got an extra this for you. You know what the league did? The league took a draft. The coach couldn't coach for a year. People were fired. Players were suspended. Like, no room for that. But the government.
You know how I feel about this. The government has too much power.
I do wonder what the overall ruling at the end of it will be, though, because it kind of ends like, oh, this happened, but it doesn't have any resolution, because obviously it just happened.
Well, he's going to pay a fine, for sure.
I don't know, bro. Felonies suck. Like, that's a decent mark. That's not a misdemeanor or anything like that where you just pay the money and walk away. A felony, like...
That's where the balance comes in with the judge.
Yeah. I think the judge is going to have to look at this and be like, are you fucking serious? He's probably going to bring in the kid and be like, yo, tell me for real. Were you just being a little brat and wanted a piercing to look cool? Or did your dad actually fucking attack you? And if the judge is cool, I think at that point, then it'll resolve itself. But I also do think it depends on if this man becomes even more irate throughout the entire process. Because if he chills out, I think it'll.
But if he does become irate, I don't blame him. I honestly do think that's shouldn't be part of the equation. To a degree, I understand why it is, but I think it's ridiculous that it is I think this man would be justifiably irate to even be in this situation. I had to waste money to bail myself out. I had to waste money to get a lawyer to defend myself, to be in front of you right now, Judge. And now I have to waste time to provide for my family a job, to be here when what they're charging me with is not how it is what went down. Like it like I have a I think I would have, if not the word right, I think I'm justified in being irate. And if that affects how this plays out, something about that is evil.
Well, in my mind, it's because I'm thinking of it in extremes. Like if he walks into the court and like spits at the judge.
Yeah, that's different. That's different.
That's what I was thinking.
That's
I was
different.
like upset, but I can understand if he's like, clenched fist in there when he's talking through his teeth about the entire situation and being like, yeah, this is pretty fucking stupid. Just go.
Yeah.
It's whatever the judge feels like that day.
Okay, yeah, that's a problem.
That's true
honestly.
too. Yeah, that's true too.
Because we trust our judges to interpret the law reasonably, rationally, and unbiasedly. And as from my biased, ignorant, dumb opinion, the past few years have proven that's not the case.
If you find 10 random people, you're going to disagree on 10 different things.
Yeah.
What makes me think that a judge, there's a human even capable of being that? Let me shut up.
It's difficult. It's difficult. And it goes back to the point I made earlier, right? Are we born originally? No, I'm kidding. Because if we were innately good, shouldn't it be easy for judges to be unbiased?
No, I think the word judge, regardless, puts you in a place where you're putting yourself in a higher place than somebody else. So
Ego.
regardless of how it goes or how you judge it, I think that's why I hate that shit. Like
pride.
That shit.
I do wonder how judges like train for, I guess, the suppression of ego.
Wouldn't you assume a judge has to go through like good person training?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you assume wouldn't you assume like a judge is like a good person?
Don't they take an oath? I don't know, honestly.
Do oaths mean anything now anymore? Do oaths even mean anything nowadays?
No, I think we got too many problems to even try and keep all this shit working.
The first thing is
I guess it just depends on the person's integrity, though.
No, like I think our sociality or whatever. I think our social whatever has outgrown our actual physical infrastructure. Like whatever we designed, however we set up and implemented, however the powers may be.
I agree with that. Actually,
we've actually outgrown that design to the point like it's just too much unpredictableness. Like
because the internet, we are so connected through the internet, but socially we are not connected. Like it's an imbalance. Like we're connected to each other everywhere at once at all times, but then when it comes to the physical world, we're so distant with each other at all times.
I think humanity has I think humanity has outgrown the the infrastructure that the old, I guess what you call old money, like the old powers is what I'm saying, have placed.
Would you
Like the
say
people
that
rich off
because
railroads.
it's now too mechanical or it's too chaotic?
I say chaotic.
They this to Gene's point, the spread of information, the distance between information reaching point A and point B gave people with power and influence the ability to change it and filter it. Whereas the information is going from point A to point B so fast now, they can't implement everything they would like to implement in order to curb certain forms of information. So now that we're ingesting information at such a rapid pace, we are glitching because we don't know. There are some of us that are glitching and going too hard
Yeah.
on certain specific topics because the information itself is just being like there's no in between
And what
anymore.
I use me
And
as an example
go
that
for it.
just happened to prove your point. Because, for example, you could use me as an example to prove that. We were talking about this father being arrested in Arkansas over piercing ear, and it's Arkansas. And I use the example of allowing trans youth to get transitioned. And that was a valid point Doc brought up. Is that actually happening in Arkansas, though? In Arkansas, I'm now conflating one area with another area, and that's because of the internet. I'm guilty of that also. And I think that right there happens everywhere all the time.
I think that does
And
happen. I
constant
definitely agree.
and
It's
it's so rapid that there's no literal individual body of anything that can counter it because it's too many leaks.
It's gotten too
There's
big.
no way to center everybody. Like it's just not possible. We weren't made for this. We have outgrown our design. We're about to get wiped off the earth, start over at cavemen, leave our little shits on the walls. They're gonna come see some buildings that we had, and hopefully their design works because our shit
Get
is
your soul
not
right.
working.
I
Get
do agree.
righteous.
I do agree it's really chaotic, and I do also agree that like the current generation, like us as millennials becoming the next like older age group. I think our job really as a generation is to teach younger generations about uh internet literacy, like just being able to competently navigate through the sea of information, since we were the first ones to like step from no information into the sea of information. We understand that bridge between the two. And
But we're
so
telling them that from a place
yeah.
of misinformation.
Yeah,
For
I was about to say I
example,
don't think we are
we
though. I don't
say
think we're seated for
we
that.
say that, right? Because internet literacy is important, right? What about old scroll literacy? What if them niggas was just lying on scrolls? Just like, oh, them niggas gonna find this shit. We was flying on dragons, doing all this dumb shit. But we believe it because of the age, the date, the time.
Well, I
Like,
think you would have to inject personal experience to be like, yo, don't click that email that talks about the Persian prince. Like, don't I know that one. Don't click on that one. Like, there's things that
thank
you've
you for
picked
saying
up
Persian, Doc.
just through living, and I generally think that like you can transfer some of that knowledge over to where you can generate people to be more competent to navigate without being so I guess like emotionally triggered and stuff like that, and to just kind of survive within this new age where you're given an iPhone next to like H5 or something like that, which I think is just too much. But I also think on like the positive, like take this article for instance. So I think the fact that we're talking about it and other people have seen it, I think it's generated so much clout that this guy might get off on clout alone. You think this county is gonna be like, oh fuck, do we really want to be that county that fucking put this guy in prison for piercing his kid's ear when his kid wanted it or something like that? You know what I mean? For kind of just being a quote unquote, depending on how you think about it, like the cool dad. You know what I mean? He let his kid get a tattoo. He let his kid get a
To your
freaking
point, Doc,
piercing.
do you think he stays in a county where the county sentiment would be he should be arrested? does that guy look like somebody who stays in a liberal area?
Well, I mean, he probably would move, or he might. I don't know. Actually, it depends. It depends on how rooted he is into his job and life there. But he might be that guy who had that really crazy story. But at the same time, like I said, like what if it comes out in a few weeks that like they throw the book at this dude for whatever reason? Everybody there is gonna be like, dude, what? Why would you do that? And all of a sudden, he's got
Or you could have priors, and this was finally the thing they could get him on.
You mean like prior
He'd get off.
crimes?
He'd get off. Reason being, he'd get off. Reason being, he's out on bond. Bond was $1,500, so the bond wasn't serious. 10% is 15,000, so the bond wasn't serious, right? Two, if he took it to trial, and his lawyer made sure it was a jury trial, which he would get the choice to pick, who of his peers in that county is going to say this man should go to jail?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Be a wash.
I've seen that.
It'd be a
yeah.
waste of money.
Exactly, but that's my
Yeah.
point earlier. It's a waste. The fact that you had to go through this process and spend the money to go through this process is what's ridiculous about this in the first place.
Right now, he's the only person who's wasted money.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
They take it to court, then the court starts wasting money.
That's when we start wasting money. Well, not we, but them as Arkansas taxpayers.
Can you imagine?
Still us. Yeah, still us, right? The biggest scam. There's so much shit. This shit does not make sense.
I
I'm
bet
tired of
somebody
this
in the jury
shit, bro.
though that had jury duty would be like, "Are you fucking serious, yo? This is the story."
This is what we're here for.
Yeah.
Can I just say not guilty and go?
Yeah,
We not
I'm gonna
paying
phone it in.
I'm tired
Oh,
of paying
man.
taxes.
I really hope he didn't abuse his son to get his ear pierced.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Like maybe
It
if something
doesn't
comes
seem
out and
it's
it's
the
terrible.
context what we're watching. It doesn't seem like that because if the son generally was being abused by his father, I can't imagine the son being the one recording everything and then yelling at the officers. I wanted it. I wanted it. Maybe like he abused his son so much the kid's brainwashed.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that too when I was reading it. I was like, that's the only other option I can consider.
False. His dad's ears aren't pierced. He didn't force that boy to pierce his ears.
So the son wanted it, is what you're saying,
Correct.
huh?
His dad was drunk. What happened was the son started chickening out.
Like I was saying, except you said it way better than me.
Come here, stop being a little pushy. Come here. Da 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 da. Boom. Because he had the son had to be still enough for the piercing.
Yes, because it's dangerous otherwise. That's exactly what I said. Because honestly, that's happened to me one time. My dad got drunk, wanted to cut my hair. I didn't want him to cut my hair, and he sat me down in the chair and started cutting my hair. And it was a terrible job. I got made fun of the following day.
Sound like abuse.
Yeah, man.
That sound like abuse.
Man, I gotta report myself to Child Protective Services and let them know.
You cut my hair. Yeah, I mean,
Is there a way to go back in time?
how'd you get your
I'm
haircut
kidding.
though?
How did I get a haircut?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
What did he cut it as? Like, what was the do?
He just took a razor and just started cutting.
Oh, so you went bald after that?
No, he did. He put like those little things you put on him, like
Yeah.
like a level 3 or level 4, whatever, and he just started doing that. But he was drunk, so he couldn't do it effectively. So I had like high and low points everywhere. Yeah, I got made fun of the following day. It was hilarious. So my mom.
Why did you just finish it yourself, dude?
You think I was like in 6th grade? You think I knew how to cut my hair? My mom ended up taking me to the get my hair cut like after school because I told her I was like I made fun of her. She was like, I'm sorry.
Damn. Yeah, your dad had a wild moment there.
Yeah.
That's wild. We would have beef forever.
I didn't care. I thought it was funny, honestly. Actually, that's a recurring theme we always go through. Any kind of trauma we talk about, it's always injected with humor.
Same with me. But it'd be real abuse in some of my stories.
Hey, man, I'm telling you, these stories sometimes they be real.
It'd be real abuse. Real abuse in some of these stories, man.
Hey, I ain't gonna snitch. So let's call it here.
That is, you know what? Let me just give you we can call it, but bring it up randomly to your parents. It's fun.
Oh yeah, I love giving my parents shit about the fucked up shit they did as parents to me. They hate it.
You remember that one time you yeah.
Yeah.
You said you wanted me to take out the trash?
Yeah, you remember that one time with the pizza box? Yeah, I know you remember.
Yeah, I'm
All
just gonna
right.
sit here.
Yeah, all right. I think that's enough fake deep thinking. We kind of got on a long tangent about the racism with white people and then good and evil, which was a fun conversation. Appreciate the feedback from Dumb Dude.
You're not dumb.
Yeah, his name is DUM Dude.
Oh, okay.
You're not
I
dumb,
was,
dude.
I was like, yo, Gene, like, what the fuck? Why you call him names already, bro? Like, you just
He
asked
hurt
him
my-
questions.
He came at me, bro. He came at me.
I was like, he contested you, but damn.
Nah, I appreciate the pushback. That's what makes the conversation more fun. Is when you're getting like the conversation we had in episodes prior. The only way we can come to a true perspective of reality is having a challenged reality. Because I honestly, I could be wrong with my perspective. I could be wrong. Like I'm a terrible Christian. Like I'm working on myself. Like I could be wrong. Like if you see a flaw in my thinking, point it out. Force me to elaborate. Force me to explain myself, and I will expose myself, or I will be not justified, but at least something through me elaborating more. And my cat won't shut up. So make sure if you haven't liked the video already, like the video. If you haven't commented, leave a comment. Tell us how much you love us, how much you hate us. If you haven't shared the video, please share it. We got to get more people coming in here to give us our perspectives and challenging our point of views.
Come hither.
Come hither. See you next time on Fake Deep Thinking. Peace.
Peace. Yo, thanks for making it to the end. We really appreciate it and hope you all enjoyed the show.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button, that like button, and the notification bell to get notified when we post our clips.
Follow us on Twitter at PodcastFDT. Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok are all Fake Deep Thinking. Check us out, please.
FDT. Peace, y'all.